I always thought I knew what it meant to be invisible, but standing by the window at Grandma Evelyn's mansion, watching the party swirl around me, I realized I had never really understood the word. The chandelier above glittered, scattering diamonds of light across the marble floor and onto the backs of people who had always made sure I knew I wasn't really one of them. Out in the center of it all, Spencer and Riley, my brothers by blood, if not by loyalty, were soaking up the attention like it was oxygen. They clinked their glasses and laughed too loud, basking in the glow of distant relatives, old friends, and business partners who'd come not for the woman of the hour, but for the spectacle her birthday always became. Spencer wore his favorite blue blazer, the one he'd bought just for occasions where cameras might be lurking. Riley's shirt was open just enough to show off the gold chain Grandma had given him at graduation, another family heirloom I'd never been offered. I watched them as they toasted to brotherhood, their arms draped around each other, their voices carrying over the crowd like royalty addressing their court. I must have looked out of place. I could see my reflection in the window, hair a little too long, suit a little too old. I felt like an afterthought someone had invited out of obligation. I wondered how much longer I could stand here without someone asking me to get out of the way. That's when Grandma Evelyn swept into the room, all silver hair and sharp emerald eyes, dressed in a deep green gown that made her look like she belonged on the cover of some magazine. She moved through her guests like a queen, gracious and exacting, her every gesture deliberate. When she reached my brothers, she took Spencer's hand in hers, kissed Riley's cheek, and then, finally, turned to me. "And of course," she said, voice carrying just enough for those nearby to hear, "Griffin is here as well. Always nice to see the extra face at our table." Her words landed soft as velvet but cut deeper than any knife. I felt a few people glance my way. Some smirked, some pitied. I managed a tight smile, said nothing, and looked down at my shoes. My mother, standing in the corner, caught my eye but quickly looked away, her lips pressed thin. People drifted by in clusters, the party humming with the scent of champagne and the sound of laughter that never quite included me. I caught snatches of conversation, someone bragging about a new lake house, another guest gushing about Riley's promotion, Aunt Sandra asking Spencer when he planned to settle down and give the family some proper airs. I was the ghost at the feast, too solid to ignore but too out of place to invite in. At one point, Spencer called out across the room, "Hey Griffin, you try the shrimp yet? It's not from Costco this year." The circle around him erupted in laughter, a little too loud, and I felt my cheeks go red. I forced myself to move from the window to wander past people who greeted me politely and then moved on, their eyes already searching for someone more important. Every time I caught sight of Grandma Evelyn, she was holding court, spinning stories about the family's history, reminding everyone who'd built the Callahan legacy from nothing but grit and vision. She never mentioned my name, not once. The music shifted and servers brought out the cake, a monstrous three-tiered thing, all gold leaf and spun sugar, as over-the-top as the woman who'd ordered it. Someone tapped a spoon against a glass. The room fell quiet as Grandma Evelyn stood, glass of champagne in hand, her gaze sweeping over her kingdom. She smiled, the kind of smile that dared anyone to interrupt her. "Thank you all for coming tonight. It means so much to celebrate another year surrounded by family. Real family. Those who have earned their place at this table, who understand what it means to be a Callahan." She paused and I felt the room lean in. Family is earned, not given. Her eyes found mine, steady, unblinking. And for a second, I swear I saw something like regret flicker across her face. But it vanished as quickly as it came. I felt every pair of eyes in the room on me. My brothers raised their glasses, already celebrating their victory in a contest I hadn't realized was still being played. I swallowed the hurt, the embarrassment. I stared right back at Grandma and lifted my glass. If she wanted me to feel like an outsider, she'd succeeded. But as the laughter resumed and the conversation swelled around me again, I felt something else rising inside me, a quiet promise to myself that one day I'd prove to all of them what it really meant to be family. Grandma's final line echoing in my head, "Family is earned, not given." Her eyes never left mine. I wondered if I had just been challenged or dismissed for good. A week after Grandma Evelyn's birthday, I found myself back in her mansion. This time, the mood had changed. The rooms weren't bright with music or laughter now. Even the light coming through the high windows felt colder, harsher, as if the world had decided to mourn with us. Family members and distant relatives arrived in dark suits and muted dresses, greeting each other with stiff hugs and nervous smiles. The air was thick with the scent of polished wood, old perfume, and something sharper, anticipation. It wasn't grief that hung over us. It was entitlement. Everyone here knew what today was really about. I kept to the edge of the study, one hand buried deep in my pocket, rolling the tiny metal key from my apartment around and around in my fist. Spencer was the first to break the uneasy silence, gliding into the room with Riley at his side, both of them freshly shaved and looking smug. They shared a look, the look of two men who already knew what they were about to receive. The will reading was to take place in Grandma's old library, a cathedral of a room lined with shelves stuffed with leather-bound books and family photos. The lawyer, Bernard Doyle, stood at the head of the long mahogany table, the will, a thick document sealed with a red wax stamp, lying before him like some ancient treasure. Everyone took their places. I ended up at the far end of the table, sitting beside a potted fern. Spencer and Riley lounged up near Bernard, their confidence nearly filling the space between them and the rest of us. Bernard cleared his throat. "Thank you all for coming. Evelyn Callahan was very clear about her wishes. He wanted her legacy to remain in the family." He glanced at me, but his face betrayed nothing. The first few paragraphs of the will were a formality. Talk of charity donations, a small trust for the gardener, and a painting gifted to a friend. I barely heard any of it. My heart hammered in my chest, equal parts dread and hope. Then Bernard straightened, his tone shifting as he read the section everyone was waiting for. "To my grandsons, Spencer Callahan and Riley Callahan," Bernard intoned, "I leave the entirety of my financial assets, including the family estate valued at $72 million, along with all vehicles, properties, and the Callahan business interests." A low murmur swept the room. Spencer shot Riley a victorious grin. My stomach twisted as I watched them exchange a silent, greedy handshake beneath the table. Bernard continued, "To my grandson, Griffin Callahan." The room quieted so quickly it felt like everyone was holding their breath. "I leave a small wooden box locked with no key provided." For a moment there was only silence. Then, like a switch flipping, Spencer burst out laughing, the sound sharp and cruel. "A box? Seriously? All that for a wooden box?" Riley doubled over, his laughter echoing through the room. My face flushed, but I forced myself to look straight ahead. All eyes in the room were on me, some confused, some smirking, some barely trying to hide their pity. I glanced at the box sitting on the table before me. It was about the size of a thick novel, made of dark cherry wood, smooth and obviously old. There was no note, no clue, just an ornate lock and a faint scent of lavender that reminded me bitterly of Grandma's perfume. Grandma Evelyn sat quietly in her chair, eyes averted, her mouth drawn in a tight line. She didn't look at me. If she was disappointed, ashamed, or simply tired, I couldn't tell. I wanted to stand up, to shout, to demand why, but the weight of so many eyes kept me frozen in my chair. Spencer leaned over, his voice a stage whisper. "Maybe there's a participation trophy inside, Griff. Or your birth certificate, you know. Proof you actually belong here." The laughter swelled again. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. For a moment I thought about just getting up and leaving. Let them have it all. What did any of this matter, really? But then I caught sight of Bernard Doyle, and something about his expression made me pause. He waited for the room to quiet, then carefully closed the will and began to pack up his papers. As the rest of the family drifted out, already planning renovations and vacations and whatever else rich people do with windfalls, Bernard lingered. He watched Spencer and Riley slap each other on the back and disappear down the hall, still laughing about the box. Once the room had emptied, Bernard approached. He glanced around, making sure we were alone. Then, quietly, he slipped a sealed envelope into my hand. "For your eyes only, Griffin," he whispered, his voice low. "Don't read it here." I looked down at the envelope. My name was written on it in neat, deliberate script. The seal was fresh. My pulse jumped in my throat. I tucked the envelope inside my jacket before anyone could see. Grandma was still sitting in her chair staring at the garden outside. I wanted to say something, to ask her why, to ask if I'd ever truly been family to her, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. The locked box felt heavier in my hands than it had any right to be. The laughter of my brothers echoed from down the hallway, but I barely heard them now. All I could think about was what could possibly be inside the box, or what the letter, marked "For Your Eyes Only," might reveal. My hands trembled as I closed my fist around the envelope. For the first time, I wondered if Grandma had left me more than just a box, or if she was leaving me a secret that could change everything. The laughter from the will reading still echoed in my ears as I carried the box upstairs to what used to be my bedroom, now little more than a dusty guest room at the far end of Grandma's mansion. I closed the door behind me and let out a shaky breath, bracing the box in my lap as I sat on the edge of the twin bed, staring at its dark, time-worn wood. It felt heavier than I expected, both in weight and in meaning. I ran my thumb along the ornate, swirling grain, noticing the dents and scratches that hinted at age, at stories I'd never been told. There was no keyhole I could find, just a small, intricate lock shaped like a knot. I tugged at the lid, half hoping it would magically open, but it didn't budge. A box of nothing, I thought bitterly, just another way to remind me I didn't belong. My phone buzzed, a group chat notification. Spencer. Hey Griff, need a moving truck for your new fortune? Riley. LOL, careful, the box might be haunted. Or empty, probably both. I turned the phone over and stuffed it under the pillow. The urge to hurl the box across the room pulsed in my chest. Instead, I stared at it, willing it to make sense. The door creaked softly, and my mother stepped in, holding a mug of tea. She looked smaller than usual, her eyes tired but searching. Thought you could use this, she said, offering the mug. Chamomile. I managed a weak smile. Thanks, Mom. She sat beside me, the mattress sinking under our combined weight. For a moment, neither of us spoke. She nodded at the box. That hers? I shrugged. Supposedly my inheritance. Locked, no key, no explanation. Just this. Mom ran a gentle hand over my shoulder. Sometimes things don't make sense right away. Maybe there's more to it. I hesitated, then pulled the sealed envelope from my jacket pocket. The lawyer gave me this. He said it was just for me. Her expression changed, almost a flicker of fear or regret, but she masked it quickly. Have you opened it? I shook my head. Not yet. There's a weird symbol on the seal. Mom leaned closer as I held up the envelope. The seal was deep blue wax, pressed with a looping insignia, 3 interlocking circles, surrounded by tiny letters I couldn't make out. She stared at it, her fingers twisting in her lap. I haven't seen that in years. A beat of silence. You recognize it? She looked away, biting her lip. Your grandmother had a lot of secrets, Griffin. Maybe more than anyone realizes. Just promise me whatever it is, be careful. I almost asked her what she knew, but something in her eyes told me not to push. I nodded instead, feeling the weight of the envelope increase tenfold. When she left, I set the mug on the nightstand and focused on the box again. I shook it gently, no rattle, just a solid, muffled thud. No hidden switches, no false bottom that I could see. I pressed my ear to the wood. Nothing but the faintest scent of lavender and cedar. Mocking texts kept popping up on my phone, but I ignored them. The room seemed smaller than I remembered. The wallpaper faded, the books on the shelf long untouched. I was back to being that awkward kid who never fit in, never knew the family's inside jokes. But now I had a choice. I picked up the envelope and ran my thumb over the cold wax. The strange symbol seemed to almost shimmer in the lamplight. My heart pounded in my chest. I thought about Spencer and Riley, probably already dreaming up ways to spend their new fortune, and about Grandma's cold eyes as she toasted, "Family is earned, not given." I'd never been given anything but doubts. Was this finally a clue, or just another trick? Hands trembling, I slid my finger under the edge of the seal and broke it open with a faint snap. Inside was a single sheet of heavy paper, folded twice, crisp and untouched. I hesitated, then unfolded it, bracing myself for whatever truth or humiliation waited inside. The handwriting was unmistakable, Grandma's elegant, looping script. But the first line wasn't a greeting. It was a warning. If you're reading this, Griffin, then everything you thought you knew about our family is about to change. This box does not hold money or jewelry, but it holds the key to everything you deserve." I read the words again, hardly breathing. "You were never meant to be the extra. There are things even your mother doesn't know, and secrets that must come to light. Trust no one until you finish this letter. There are people in this family who would do anything to keep you from knowing the truth." My pulse hammered. I looked at the door, suddenly certain I wasn't as alone as I thought. I read on, devouring each line. "Start by looking beneath what you believe is empty. The box opens only for those who know where to look. Your father once told you that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about acting when you have nothing left to lose. Remember that now. Beneath what you believe is empty." I looked down at the box, suddenly seeing it in a new light. The truth wasn't in what the box seemed to hold, but in what it was hiding. The letter's last line rang in my mind as I ran my hands over the box. "What you find next will change everything." I sat on the creaky bed, the letter open on my lap, the box still unopened beside me. Grandma's handwriting stared up at me, steady, elegant, sharper than I remembered. This wasn't the scolding script she used for birthday cards. Every word felt measured, loaded. I read the letter again, voice low as if the walls might listen. "If you're reading this, Griffin, then everything you thought you knew about our family is about to change." I turned to the second sheet, tucked neatly behind the first. At first glance, it looked like an old grocery list. But as my eyes traced the lines, I realized it was something else. A riddle. "Your brothers received the fortune because they expected it. You received the truth because you questioned it. Everything you need to know is hidden in our history. Go to the address below, alone, at midnight. Bring the box. There, the answers you seek will begin to reveal themselves." Under the riddle was an address, Eastgate Avenue, number 47. No city, no state. Just those words, bold and final. I stared at the address, racking my memory. The name meant nothing. I'd never heard Grandma mention Eastgate. Was it a trap? A trick? I couldn't shake the sting of being left out, the echo of Spencer's laughter, Riley's sneer, and the way the whole family had looked through me. Beneath the address was an old photograph. It was grainy, black and white, a little curled at the edges. The photo showed a weathered two-story house, front porch sagging, a single swing hanging from the rafters. On the back, in faded blue pen, "Home is where the secrets start." Why me? Why now? I stared at Grandma's careful script, hunting for clues. The room felt cold, the silence stretching. I turned the photograph over, searching for anything else, an address, a date, a face I might recognize. Nothing. Why would Grandma hide all this from everyone but me? Why the secrecy, the cloak and dagger routine? And why had she never trusted her own children, or even my mother, with this? I was so lost in the maze of questions I didn't hear footsteps in the hall until the door creaked open. Bernard Doyle, the family lawyer, stepped in quietly, glancing behind him before closing the door. He didn't bother with small talk. His voice was urgent, a low whisper. "Griffin, I need a word. Outside. Now." He gestured toward the hallway, and I followed him, heart pounding. We slipped out the back, the night air prickling my skin. I could still hear laughter and clinking glasses from the main hall, but out here, it was only shadows and wind. Bernard kept his voice barely above a whisper. "Listen, I gave you the letter for a reason, and I need you to take this seriously. Don't trust anyone, not even your mother. Not tonight. Not until you find out the whole truth." My jaw tightened. What's really going on? Why the games? He shook his head, eyes darting around as if expecting someone to leap from the bushes. "I can't explain, not yet. Your grandmother, she made arrangements years ago. She told me only you could know the truth, and only if things went wrong." My mind spun. Things went wrong. Like what? Bernard pressed something small and cold into my hand. A vintage brass key, old and tarnished but heavy. "You'll need this at the house in the photo. Don't show it to anyone. And Griffin," he looked at me, the weight of his words anchoring me. "They're already watching you. Spencer and Riley, even your mother. People will act strange. Just get to the address, bring the box, and trust no one until you see what's inside. A flicker of fear danced in my gut. "Why me?" I whispered. Bernard only shook his head. "She said you'd understand when you saw it with your own eyes. Midnight, Eastgate Avenue, number 47. If you don't go, you might never know who you really are, or what you're owed." Before I could ask more, he slipped away into the night, vanishing between the hedges. I stood there, fingers clutching the cold brass key, the letter, and the faded photograph. The night pressed in, thick with secrets. Inside, the family's laughter and clinking glasses felt a million miles away. I stared down at the key in my palm and the address scrawled on the letter. Bernard's warning ringing in my ears. "Don't trust anyone, not even your mother. Go to the address at midnight." The windshield wipers thudded a frantic rhythm as I drove through the rain-slicked streets, headlights carving pale tunnels in the darkness. Grandma's letter sat on the passenger seat, weighed down by the brass key and the old, stubborn wooden box. My GPS sputtered, "Arrived," just as I turned onto a dead-end road lined with gnarled trees, Hawthorne Lane, though the street sign was half-rusted and bent. At the end of the lane stood the house from the photograph. 2 stories of peeling paint, a sagging porch, window panes glazed with decades of dust. For a moment I wondered if the whole thing was some elaborate joke, another lesson in humility. But Bernard's warning echoed in my head. "Trust no one. Bring the box. Go alone." Rain stung my face as I stepped out, clutching the box and key beneath my jacket. Every footstep echoed on the rotted porch. I found the front door unlocked, just as the letter had hinted. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of wet wood and old secrets. Moonlight sliced through broken glass, tracing ghosts across the warped floorboards. My heart hammered as I moved from room to room. Each step felt heavier. Echoes of forgotten arguments, laughter, memories I wasn't supposed to remember. At the base of the stairs I found what I'd come for. A small table, and on it another box. This one was newer, oak, polished but still old-fashioned. A tag dangled from the latch. For Griffin. Hands shaking, I slid the brass key into the lock. It clicked, a sound both foreign and familiar. The lid creaked open. Inside, a handful of childhood mementos, an old toy car, a faded baseball card, a pressed daisy, and a sealed envelope with my name in Grandma's slanted script. I stared at the items, the weight of each memory pressing down. The daisy, she'd picked it for me at her lake house the summer I broke my arm. The baseball card, one I'd begged for at a garage sale. These weren't just things. They were proof that someone once had paid attention. I reached for the envelope. On the front, in thick, confident ink, "For Griffin, when you're ready." I hesitated. My fingers hovered over the seal. What was I supposed to be ready for? My brothers were probably celebrating their new fortunes by now, toasting to family loyalty and their newfound millions. And I was here, alone in a crumbling house with ghosts and rain for company. Thunder rolled overhead. I turned the envelope over in my hands, unsure. Did I really want to know what Grandma had hidden all these years? What if the truth made everything worse? A sudden flash, light seared through the window, bright and blinding. Headlights swinging across the front lawn, then parking at the edge of the drive. I froze, heart jackhammering. The box slipped in my grip, thumping softly on the table. Were they watching me? Did someone follow? Was this Spencer and Riley come to gloat? Or Bernard with another warning? Or someone else entirely? The engine cut off and silence crept back in, even thicker than before. I pressed my back to the wall, the envelope clutched to my chest. The shadows outside shifted, headlights flickering, a car door opening, footsteps in the wet grass. Whoever it was, I knew this was no accident. Someone wanted to know what I'd found, or to stop me from learning more. I held my breath, the envelope trembling in my hand as footsteps crunched closer. The rain hammered down, washing away every sound but my racing pulse. Someone was here, and the secrets in this house weren't just mine anymore. Rain battered the rotting shingles as I sat on the ancient floorboards, the air thick with mildew and memory. In my lap rested Evelyn's second envelope, the one I'd found in the box at Hawthorne Lane, a single, sealed mystery bridging the past and whatever future she imagined for me. My hands shook. Not from the cold, but from the flood of old ghosts pressing at the corners of my mind. I closed my eyes and was a boy again, 8 years old, peeking around the corner at Grandma's Christmas dinner. "Spencer, come sit here next to me," she'd called, beaming, her pearls glinting under the chandelier. And Riley front and center. My clever boys. Me? I hovered in the doorway, invisible. Her gaze drifted over me and caught for half a second. "Griffin, you can help your mother in the kitchen, dear." The words slid off her tongue like a velvet rope pulled across a private club entrance. I'd stood silent, fists clenched, while Mom forced a smile and handed me a tray of dinner rolls. Flash after flash, memory layered over memory. At Riley's 11th birthday party, he'd unwrapped a vintage watch, a family heirloom. "Only for true Callahan men," Grandma announced, voice thick with pride. I received a generic paperback, no note inside, the barcode sticker still on the back. Even in photos, I stood at the edge of the frame. At Spencer's high school graduation, Evelyn gripped his shoulder, whispering something private. I watched from a step below, a proud grin pasted on my face for the crowd, but aching on the inside. At every family gathering, I'd grown used to the whispers, "He's sweet, but, well, you know, such a nice boy, but not a Callahan through and through." As a kid, I didn't understand. As a teenager, I resented it. As an adult, I learned to endure, even as my brothers slid through life on rails greased with Evelyn's approval. The thunder outside jolted me back to the present. The envelope, still sealed with that strange looping symbol, lay on my knees. I broke the wax with a trembling thumb and unfolded the letter. Her handwriting surprised me. Not the sharp, slashing script of birthday cards or checks, but softer, almost hesitant, as if she were confessing to the page. "Griffin, if you're reading this, it means I am gone, and that you are alone, again. I'm sorry for that, and for so much else that can't be changed. There is a reason things were the way they were. I did not always make the right choices, but I tried to protect you in my own way." I stopped, letting the words settle. "Protect me." I read on, my heart thudding. "You were never supposed to feel like a stranger in your own family. But sometimes the past poisons the present. Years ago, after your grandfather died, there was an arrangement made, a debt owed and a bargain struck. I hid the truth from everyone, even your mother. Our legacy was built on lies, and I am tired of carrying them. Spencer and Riley. They are who the world expects. But you were always different. I wanted to tell you so many times. I wanted to tell you that you may be the only real Callahan left." I stared at the page, my breath catching. What did that mean? My blood ran cold as she continued. "The fortune your brothers received came at a price, one they never knew they paid. But you, Griffin, you were given something more valuable, even if it never looked that way. I hope, someday, you will understand. Everything you need to know is in our history. Look at what was hidden. Question what you've been told. Your mother loves you, don't blame her. She carried her own pain. As for me, I am sorry for every time I pushed you away. I thought it would make you strong. Maybe I was wrong." Evelyn, a lump rose in my throat. For the first time, her words sounded less like orders and more like regret. As I lowered the letter, something slipped from the envelope and fluttered to the floor. I reached down and picked it up, a black and white photograph, the edges yellowed and soft. It was a family portrait, taken before I was old enough to remember. There was Grandma Evelyn at the center, Spencer and Riley on either side, their mother behind them. And off to the right, a little boy, me, standing alone, hands at my sides, gaze aimed at something beyond the camera. But where my face should have been, someone had taken a pen and scratched it out, deep gouges marring the image. My mouth, my eyes, my entire existence obliterated with angry, relentless strokes. Underneath, in Evelyn's faded handwriting, it said, "Family is not always what it seems." I stared at the ruined photo, my hands numb. Did she do this? Or was it someone else? Why keep a picture only to erase me from it? The questions buzzed in my mind. I thought of Bernard's warning, "Don't trust anyone, not even your mother," and shivered. If I was never truly family, why leave me these clues? What secret was worth so much pain? The thunder shook the house again, but it was nothing compared to the storm now breaking loose inside me. The Callahan mansion gleamed brighter than ever, every window blazing with light. I could hear the bass thumping before I even made it up the marble steps, a different sort of celebration than Grandma Evelyn ever hosted, but Spencer and Riley thrived in this new order. That night, the entire estate pulsed with their victory. Inside, servers wound through the crowd carrying trays stacked with champagne flutes and caviar tarts. Laughter ricocheted off the chandeliered ceilings. Photographers from local magazines clustered by the grand staircase, snapping shots of my brothers in tailored suits, grinning arm in arm. I hovered near the punch bowl, invisible in a borrowed blazer, trying not to fidget with the heavy wooden box still stashed in my satchel. Every few minutes a new, important guest arrived. Local realtors, city council members, even a B-list actor from the hospital drama Riley used to binge with his college friends. They all clapped Spencer on the back, toasted the Callahan legacy, and traded jokes about old money and new beginnings. I never felt further from either. At one point, Spencer's voice boomed over the music, drawing the crowd's gaze. To family and to fortunes well-deserved. His eyes landed on me, even the ones who needed a little remedial help to get here. Riley, already tipsy, chimed in, "Griffin, you should say a few words. Maybe thank Grandma for your generous donation to the box industry." The crowd chuckled, eyes flicking to my satchel. Heat crawled up my neck. I forced a smile, but my voice stuck in my throat. The moment passed, but not before a nearby reporter scribbled something in her notebook, lips twitching. I retreated to the solarium, breath shallow, phone buzzing in my pocket with texts from Mom I wasn't ready to answer. I scanned the room, wishing Bernard Doyle, Grandma's lawyer, was there, but all I saw were swirling dresses and empty laughter. That's when I felt a hand on my arm, soft, perfumed, unfamiliar. I turned to find a woman in her 70s, elegant in a navy silk dress, pearls gleaming. Her eyes, sharp and knowing, fixed on mine. "You look just like your grandfather did at your age," she murmured. A little lost. A little angry. I blinked, caught off guard. "Did you know Evelyn well?" She smiled, a private, rueful smile. "Longer than almost anyone here. You know, your grandmother never threw parties like this. She hated spectacle. She believed in secrets, especially the kind that buy silence." She slipped a folded card into my hand, fingers lingering for a moment. "Ask Bernard about 1985, and remember, people only hide what matters most." Before I could speak, she vanished into the crowd, swallowed by laughter and the glare of camera flashes. I flipped the card open. Just 4 words, scrawled in careful blue ink. "Ask Bernard about 1985. I searched my memory, but nothing came to mind. That year was a blank for me. I would have been a baby, Spencer just a toddler. Why would Grandma's friend bring it up now, after everything? My thoughts were interrupted by a sudden eruption of noise from the main hall. Riley had convinced the DJ to play their college fight song, and a half-dozen friends surged around him chanting, "To the Callahan Kings." Glasses raised, someone started a chant. "Where's the box? Where's the box?" Spencer, tipsy but calculating, beckoned me over with a smirk. "Hey, Griffin, want to open your treasure in front of everyone? Maybe there's a coupon for a new family tree inside." Another round of laughter. "I'm good," I replied, voice tight. Wouldn't want to ruin the party. Someone snapped a photo, me, in the corner, shoulders hunched, outnumbered. I couldn't wait for the headlines. Heir apparent and the family outcast. Just as I tried to slip out to the patio, my phone buzzed again. This time, a single message from an unknown number. "Don't trust the crowd. Some games aren't meant to be won." A chill raced down my spine. Was Bernard trying to reach me? I scanned the crowd for his tall, angular frame. And then, through a break in the guests near the staircase, I caught a glimpse of him. Bernard Doyle, pressed into the shadows, his sharp eyes darting across the room. Our eyes met for half a heartbeat. There was worry there, maybe fear. He gave the smallest of nods toward the library, then disappeared through a side door, moving faster than I'd ever seen the old lawyer move. I pushed my way through the crowd, nearly bumping into Riley, who was too busy reveling in his newfound popularity to notice. I headed for the library, heart pounding, Bernard's name on my lips. But by the time I reached the wood-paneled sanctuary, he was gone. Just the faint scent of his cologne lingering near the desk. On the side table, I spotted a single white rose and a business card, blank except for the number 1985 written in neat black ink. The clues were piling up. The year, the warnings, the secrets everyone seemed desperate to keep buried. As the party raged on, the mansion's laughter grew distant, a storm at the edge of my mind. Whatever had happened in 1985, it was the thread that tied my family's story together, and I was finally ready to pull. Bernard gone, the mystery of 1985 hanging in the air. I found Bernard in the moonlit garden, pacing near the marble fountain where Grandma Evelyn used to feed the koi. He looked smaller than I remembered, his angular face drawn tight, collar askew as if he'd left the party in a hurry. He started at my approach, eyes darting past me to check we weren't being watched. "Griffin," he whispered, voice low. "We can't talk long, but I suppose I owe you an answer." The air was sharp with the scent of wet grass. My fingers curled tighter around the card from Evelyn's friend. "Why 1985? Why do people look at me like I'm a stranger in my own family?" He exhaled shakily, rubbing his forehead. "You deserve the truth. God knows no one else here will give it to you straight." For a moment, Bernard just stared into the dark. Then, "In 1985, your grandmother made a decision that changed everything. There was an incident. Not public, but devastating for the Callahan name. You see, you're not the first to be made an outsider in this family." My pulse quickened. "A missing heir?" Bernard nodded. "Your Uncle Thomas, Evelyn's firstborn. Brilliant, rebellious. He left. No, he vanished after a blow-up with your grandfather over the family fortune. Rumors swirled about money gone missing, a forged signature, something about the trust. The scandal nearly broke the family apart, but Evelyn buried it. When Thomas disappeared, so did the conversation. It was like he'd never existed. Evelyn made it clear loyalty was everything. Outsiders, traitors, would be erased, even if they were blood." The words landed hard. "So Grandma erased him, like she's tried to erase me." A muscle worked in Bernard's jaw. "That's why she's always kept you at arm's length. You reminded her too much of the one she lost. You were never meant to inherit. She thought outcasts brought only pain." I stared at the ground, the pieces slowly fitting together. "And the locked box? The letters? The address?" Bernard's eyes flickered. "She left you that box for a reason. Not as a joke, but as a test. She never trusted herself to choose correctly, not after Thomas. Everything you need to understand is in that safe. Here." He fished into his coat and pressed a small cold key into my palm. "The study, behind the portrait of Evelyn and Robert. There's a wall safe. The combination is Thomas's birthday. August 12th, 1956. I glanced at the key, metal biting into my skin. "Bernard, what's in the safe?" He hesitated. "Truth and consequences. Letters, ledgers, things that could tear this family apart if they saw daylight. Evelyn left you a choice, just like she did with Thomas. Do you expose the secrets or do you walk away?" Thunder rumbled in the distance and the party's laughter floated through the trees. "Why are you helping me?" I asked quietly. He gave a sad smile. "Because I was Thomas's friend, long before I was the Callahan family's lawyer. I let them write him out of history, and I've regretted it every day since. I won't let them do it to you." I gripped the key, heart thumping. "Thank you, Bernard, for trusting me." He nodded, eyes bright with old pain. "Be careful, Griffin. Some truths cost more than silence." Bernard melted back into the night, leaving me alone with the weight of history pressing on my shoulders. I made my way to the house, slipping in through the side entrance, past the kitchen where staff laughed over midnight snacks, past the library still echoing with distant music. I paused at the bottom of the grand staircase, watching Spencer and Riley bask in the last waves of their own triumph, oblivious to the undercurrent swirling beneath the surface. The study was just as I remembered it. Polished mahogany desk, velvet drapes, Evelyn's portrait over the mantel, her eyes sharp and all-seeing even in oil paint. My palms sweat as I felt behind the frame, finding the catch that released the safe. With trembling hands, I turned the dials, 8 to 12 to 56. The safe clicked open. Inside, stacks of documents, Old journals, faded ledgers, a smaller box. On top, a thick envelope with my name written in Grandma's careful slanted hand. The air felt suddenly thin. I reached for the envelope. A voice cut through the silence. "Griffin, stop!" My heart froze. I spun around. My mother stood in the doorway, her face pale, eyes rimmed red. She looked at the open safe, then at me. I saw a mixture of fear and resolve in her gaze. "You can't open that yet," she said, voice trembling. "You need to hear the truth from me before you read what's inside. If you ever trusted me, Griffin, just listen, please." My breath caught, torn between the key in my hand and the plea in her eyes. The safe hung open. The past waited inside. But, for the first time, I wondered if the person I needed answers from wasn't Evelyn or Bernard, but the woman who'd kept her own secrets all these years. Griffin's mother stands between him and the truth, demanding to tell her side before the safe is opened. It's nearly midnight, the house finally silent after hours of celebration and secrets. I follow my mother, Janice, to the kitchen, the only room in the mansion that's ever truly felt like home. She flicks on the small lamp over the sink. The golden pool of light glows against the marble countertop, making us look like actors trapped in an empty stage. She doesn't offer tea. She doesn't sit. She stands by the counter, arms crossed, her eyes glassy but sharp. I take a seat at the end of the breakfast bar, the key to the safe still warm in my hand, and wait for her to speak. "Griffin," she says quietly, "I owe you the truth. No more half answers. No more protecting the family at your expense." She takes a deep, shuddering breath. For a long moment, the only sound is the hum of the old refrigerator. "You were never meant to carry this alone. But Evelyn, your grandmother, made sure you would." I search her face for answers. What does that mean? Why did she hate me? Why was I always the outsider? Janice's lips tremble. She closes her eyes. "Because you're not a Callahan by blood, Griffin. Not the way Spencer and Riley are." The words hang in the air, heavy as a headstone. For a moment I can't breathe. She continues, voice barely above a whisper. "When I was 19, I met someone who changed my life. It was a summer fling, and I thought it was love. But he left, and a few months later I found out I was pregnant. Evelyn had just buried your grandfather. She was desperate to protect the Callahan name, desperate to keep control over the family fortune." Janice paces now, hands wringing the hem of her sleeve. "She made me swear never to speak of your real father. She arranged for the birth certificate, the announcements, everything. She told the world you were Robert Callahan's last grandson, and that's what you became. Legally, publicly. But to her, you were always a reminder of a crack in the Callahan dynasty she couldn't patch. I'm numb, my mind racing through years of small cruelties, the way Evelyn's eyes always seemed to look through me. So I was just a lie. My whole life I was a cover-up?" Janice flinches at my words. "You were never a lie to me. You were my son. But to Evelyn, you were insurance. And eventually you became her greatest threat." My stomach twists. "Why? Because I might ruin the inheritance?" Janice nods, tears spilling now. "The trust was written for Callahan blood only. If anyone ever found out, everything, every cent, could be disputed. She paid lawyers to bury records. She threatened anyone who knew the truth. That's why she kept you close, but never close enough." Anger bubbles up in my chest. "And my brothers? Did they know?" She shakes her head. "No, to them you were always just different. And Evelyn made sure of it. She whispered in their ears, made little comments about loyalty, about true Callahans. She set you all against each other so no one would question the real secret." I stand, pushing the stool back with a screech. "So what now, Mom? I'm just supposed to accept that my whole life was a performance so Grandma could keep her grip on the money?" Janice reaches for my hand. "No, Griffin. I'm telling you because you deserve to know who you are. And because the box, the letters, Evelyn left those for a reason. I think, deep down, she was trying to give you a choice she never gave Thomas. Maybe she wanted to set things right in her own twisted way. The pain in her eyes is real. For a second, my anger wavers, replaced by something sadder, a sense of loss for a family I never really had. I wipe my face and force myself to steady. There's more. I need to see what's in the safe." Janice nods, resigned, and together we walk back to the study. The house is dark, but my heart pounds with a new, terrible clarity. I kneel before the open safe, pulling out the thick envelope, ledgers, and a battered file folder marked Confidential. Inside, the first page is a letter from Evelyn. If you're reading this, Griffin, it means you found the courage to face what others have hidden. I wronged you. I wronged your mother. But this is the truth that could destroy the Callahan legacy, or save it. What you do now is up to you. My hands shake as I turn the pages. The ledgers are full of names, dates, and transactions, some familiar, others shocking. Old adoption records, birth certificates, and a notarized document that calls into question the legal foundation of the entire estate. My eyes widen. It's all here, proof that the trust was violated, that the will could be challenged. If I wanted, I could bring Spencer and Riley's inheritance crashing down. The fortune, the mansion, all the Callahan assets, everything could be frozen or even taken away. My head spins with possibility, heartbreak, and rage. I remember Grandma's words at her birthday. Family is earned, not given. I realize she meant it as both a threat and a test. Janice stands behind me, her hand trembling on my shoulder. You have to decide, Griffin. Do you want revenge or do you want peace? Before I can answer, a shadow flickers in the hallway. The floor creaks. Someone else is awake and they might know what I've found. Griffin discovers the proof that could upend the will, but isn't alone in the dark mansion. Sunlight streams through the tall dining room windows, making the gleaming silverware look even sharper than the voices ricocheting across the table. The breakfast table is set with crystal, china, and enough tension to choke a room twice this size. Spencer scrolls his phone, Riley laughs with his mouth full, and Grandma sits, spine straight, cold coffee at her elbow. Janice barely touches her toast, her eyes flicking anxiously between us. I clear my throat. My hands tremble, but I don't let it show. We need to talk. All of us, now. Spencer rolls his eyes. What is it this time, Griffin? Here to congratulate us again? Riley snickers. Or ask for a pity loan? I set the manila envelope on the table, thick, battered, marked Confidential. No, I'm here to tell the truth, about everything. Silence. Grandma's eyes sharpen, searching my face. What truth? Her voice is icy, but there's a note of fear beneath. I flip open the folder, sliding out the documents for everyone to see. Birth certificates, old trust paperwork, Evelyn's letter. I know why I was never really part of this family. I know about my real father. I know the trust was written for Callahan's blood only, and I know you all lied to keep up appearances. Spencer's face goes slack. Riley stops chewing. Grandma's cup rattles against the saucer. Janice tries to speak, but I keep going. These documents prove the inheritance wasn't legal. The entire estate, the money, everything, it was all based on a lie. If this goes to court, it'll destroy everything. The press will eat you alive. The will can be contested. You could lose it all. A pause, a heavy, dreadful pause. The ticking of the grandfather clock seems deafening. Spencer explodes. What are you playing at? Are you blackmailing us? Riley snarls. You're bluffing. You're just bitter because you got nothing. I hold their gaze, calm for the first time in days. No, I'm giving you a choice. We can fix this quietly, or I take everything to Bernard and let the courts and the media sort it out. The room erupts. Spencer's chair scrapes back, his face red with rage. You want a cut? You want to ruin your own family for a payday? Riley pounds the table. You're not one of us. You never were. Grandma raises a trembling hand. Enough. Her voice is softer, but somehow more commanding than ever. Let him speak. I take a shaky breath. I never wanted the money. I wanted the truth. I wanted to belong. But you all chose secrets over honesty, over family. Grandma, you set this in motion. You could have told me. Instead, you watched me suffer for years. She closes her eyes. I did it to protect you. To protect everyone. If the truth had come out sooner, you would have been eaten alive by this family's greed. I thought maybe I could keep you safe by keeping you apart. The door bursts open. Bernard, the family lawyer, strides in, cell phone to his ear. There's a crowd at the gate, reporters, neighbors, someone leaked the will reading. Spencer lunges at me. You did this. You called them. I shove him away. I didn't have to. Secrets like these never stay buried. You all taught me that. Grandma pushes her chair back, face ashen. Stop this, please. Griffin. Outside, camera flashes flicker. The distant hum of news vans, the shrill ring of cell phones, panic rising as the house becomes a fortress under siege. Riley's voice shakes. If the press gets this, if the Foundation finds out, we'll lose everything. Are you happy now? Janice steps between us. No more lies. No more threats. Griffin has a right to the truth, and so do you. The shouting, the panic, the confusion all swirl together in a storm of betrayal. I'm no longer sure who the enemy is or who I'm fighting for. I just know that nothing will ever be the same. Spencer lunges again, only to be stopped by Bernard. If you want to keep anything, you need to listen. The courts will side with the facts. The will is now in jeopardy, unless you negotiate. Now. Grandma grips the table, knuckles white, her eyes fixed on me. Griffin, please. Don't do this. The truth was supposed to protect you. Her voice trails off. Suddenly, she gasps, clutching her chest. Her face drains of color, eyes wide with fear and regret. The room falls silent as she slumps forward, her teacup shattering on the floor. Grandma! Janice rushes to her side. The world slows, panic seizing my chest as the woman who orchestrated everything, who shaped my fate, collapses. Her last words a broken whisper. The truth was supposed to protect you. Grandma collapses. The truth unleashed, chaos swirling, and Griffin must decide what comes next. The fluorescent lights in the hospital waiting room seem too bright, casting everything in stark, unforgiving relief. I sit slouched in a stiff chair, elbows on my knees, running through the chaos that just shattered my family. Mom sits beside me, silent but solid, her hand resting on my shoulder. Bernard stands across from us, perfectly composed as always except for the twitch in his jaw. No one says much. Riley paces, phone pressed to his ear, demanding updates from the family's PR team. Spencer sits at the far end of the row, face in his hands. Outside the big glass window, rain lashes the parking lot, echoing the tension in the room. Finally, Bernard clears his throat and pulls up a chair. He leans in, lowering his voice. Your grandmother is stable. The doctors say it was stress, not a heart attack. She'll recover. Riley snorts. Good, she can explain how she ruined everything. Spencer shoots him a look but says nothing. Bernard ignores them, focusing on me. There's something you need to understand, Griffin. Evelyn didn't do any of this by accident. She set every piece in motion long ago. The letters, the boxes, the secrecy, it was all her test. I stare at him, unsure whether to feel grateful or furious. A test for what? He folds his hands, eyes earnest. Loyalty. Character. When Evelyn updated her estate plan last year, she changed the original will. The assets you saw today, the $72 million, the house, the cars, those were just the surface. She left instructions that you, Griffin, would inherit the most important thing, the controlling interest in the Callahan Family Foundation. I blink. The foundation? Bernard nods. It's worth more than all the legacy assets combined. Your brother's shares are substantial, but their access is conditional. They can only receive distributions and voting power with your signature. You hold the tie-breaking vote on every major decision. Mom's eyes fill with tears, pride and disbelief mingling on her face. She wanted you to have the one thing no one could take away, a real seat at the table. Spencer stands, his voice sharp. Wait, you're telling me I have to answer to him now? That's insane. I was supposed to run the company. Bernard shrugs, all business. That's how she wanted it. She watched all of you for years. She knew who could be trusted with the family's legacy. Riley looks at me, face pale. This is a joke. He's never run anything. He's a nobody. I feel a flash of old humiliation. Then it's gone. I stand, steadying myself. I'm the only one who never wanted the money. Maybe that's exactly why she picked me. Bernard hands me a sealed folder, heavy with official documents. These are the trust papers, Griffin. Sign here, and the foundation is yours. You'll have full control of grants, investments, even the estate properties. Spencer and Riley's distributions are subject to your approval. A cold silence. Spencer's jaw clenches. You can't do this. Mom finally speaks up, her voice steel beneath the worry. Your grandmother could, and she did. This family isn't just about money, Spencer. It's about trust. About making things right. Riley drops into a chair, defeated. So you hold all the cards now? What are you going to do? Cut us off? I shake my head, heart pounding. I don't know yet, but I won't be blackmailed or bullied into anything. I'll do what Grandma wanted, protect the legacy, not just the dollars. The nurse comes in, summoning us to see Evelyn. In her private room, she's awake, looking frail but determined. Her hand trembles as she reaches for mine. I knew you'd come, Griffin. I'm sorry I let you suffer, but it was the only way I could be sure. Her voice cracks, but her gaze is steady. This family needed someone who understood loss, who could value people over property. Spencer and Riley hover by the door, silent now, realizing for the first time in their lives that the world has shifted under their feet. Evelyn turns to them, her voice soft but sharp as a knife. I love you both, but I won't let greed destroy what your grandfather and I built. The sky was turning gold when I stepped out into the garden. For the first time in my life, the Callahan estate felt quiet. The shadows were long, the air cool, dew shimmering on the grass. My heart was still pounding from the night before, from everything that had come out, my mother's tearful confession, the chaos after the safe, Grandma's collapse in the dining room. But now there was only silence and the faint sound of birds and me standing there, not as an afterthought, not as the extra, but as something new. I let the sun warm my face. The mansion behind me still looked intimidating, but the weight it carried felt lighter. Maybe it was because I'd finally learned the truth. Maybe it was because, for the first time, I wasn't the only one standing on the outside looking in. Footsteps behind me, I turned. My mother, Janice, was there, her eyes red-rimmed but calm. She wrapped her arms around me, holding tight. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I should have told you everything years ago. I should have fought harder for you. I hugged her back. We all did what we thought was right, I said quietly, though I wasn't sure I believed it. But it's over now. All of it. One by one, the others appeared. Bernard, the lawyer, stood by the terrace, hands in his pockets. Spencer and Riley emerged last. They looked different now, shoulders slumped, eyes darting away from mine. The bravado was gone. Spencer managed a weak smile. Hey, he said, voice barely above a whisper. Riley looked at his shoes. I faced them both, my pulse quickening. There's something I want to say, I announced. My voice sounded strange, stronger than I felt. They stopped and looked at me. Really looked at me. Maybe for the first time. All my life I wanted to be part of this family, I said. Even when you laughed at me. Even when Grandma called me the extra and made sure everyone knew where I stood, I tried to belong. And maybe I went about it the wrong way sometimes. But I never wanted to hurt anyone. I just wanted to matter. Spencer's eyes filled with tears. He wiped them away, quick and embarrassed. I'm sorry, he said. We were idiots. I was an idiot. I didn't know. I stopped him with a raised hand. I don't want apologies. Not today. We can't undo what's happened. But here's what we can do. We can start over. With honesty. With boundaries. I'm in charge of the foundation now. Grandma wanted it that way. She wanted the family legacy to mean something. If you want to work with me, you're welcome. But it'll be by my rules. No more secrets. No more putting each other down. We move forward or not at all. Riley shuffled closer, nervous. Does that mean we're still family? I looked at him, really looked, and saw a scared little brother, not the arrogant guy who'd laughed at me for years. We can be, I said, if we choose to be. There was a long, heavy silence. Then my mother stepped forward. I'll help, she said, her voice steady. Whatever you need. No more lies, Griffin. We owe you that. Bernard nodded. Your grandmother made mistakes, but she wanted you to have the chance she never gave herself. A chance to fix things. To make them right. Spencer and Riley exchanged a glance. For a moment, I thought they might walk away. But then, Spencer stuck out his hand. To a new beginning? I shook it, feeling the old bitterness drain away, maybe not gone, but smaller. Behind us, the old mansion seemed to breathe easier. The years of secrets and coldness, the isolation and suspicion, all of it was ending here on this new morning. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Calls with lawyers, plans for the foundation, discussions about who would handle what. There were arguments, sure, and old habits tried to creep back in, but every time I remembered the promise I made to myself. Never become the gatekeeper Grandma had been. Never let pride get in the way of the truth. That evening, as the sun set and the garden glowed in the fading light, I wandered down the path lined with hydrangeas. I felt lighter, like some invisible weight had finally lifted from my chest. It wasn't about the money anymore, or the mansion, or even the name. It was about what I did with it all, about rewriting what family meant, starting now. I turned toward the house, imagining Grandma Evelyn watching from her old window. Maybe she was still judging, still keeping score, or maybe, in her own way, she was proud. I took a deep breath, pulled out my phone, and faced the camera. The new head of the Callahan family, standing in the garden at dawn. "Sometimes," I said, my voice steady, "the smallest key unlocks the biggest secret. Family isn't what you inherit, it's what you make, every single day." Thanks for listening to my story. Subscribe for more stories where the truth changes everything. I smiled, for real this time, and shut off the camera. A new chapter had started, and this time, I was the one writing it.